reported my own mother to the police, and now she's in jail. Everyone in my family hates me, and I'm not even sure if I made the right call. But when I tell you what she did, maybe you'll understand why I had to do it. I'm Clara, 28. My mom, Carol, is 54, and we've always had a rocky relationship. She's the kind of person who sees the world in black and white, her way or the highway. Growing up, she was controlling, manipulative, and honestly, kind of emotionally abusive. But she was still my mom, and I thought that meant I had to put up with it. I've spent most of my adult life trying to keep her at arm's length. Not completely cutting her off, but definitely not letting her get too involved in my life. Until a few months ago, when everything spiraled out of control. It all started with my younger brother, Ethan. He's 21 and still lives at home with Mom. He's always been her favorite, but she's also really hard on him, constantly nitpicking, controlling his every move. Ethan's the quiet type, and I always figured he was just biding his time until he could move out. But a few months ago, he called me, absolutely frantic. He said Mom had gone through his stuff and found a stash of weed he'd been hiding. Now, I know weed isn't a big deal for most people, but my mom, she's old school, super anti-drugs, and she completely lost it. She didn't just ground him or lecture him, she threatened to kick him out of the house. Ethan was terrified. He begged me to talk to her, to calm her down and convince her to let him stay. So I went over there thinking I could smooth things over. But when I got there, I found out the situation was way worse than Ethan had let on. Mom wasn't just angry, she was unhinged. She was screaming at Ethan, calling him a drug addict, saying he was going to ruin his life. And then she started throwing his things out of the house, his clothes, his laptop, even his school books. I tried to intervene, but she turned on me, saying I was enabling him and that I was just as much of a disappointment as he was. I froze. I've seen her lose her temper before, but I've never seen her actually hit someone. Ethan was crying and I just snapped. I told her if she didn't stop, I'd call the police. She laughed in my face and said, "Go ahead, let's see who they believe." So I did. I called the police. When the cops showed up, I honestly thought they'd just give her a warning, maybe de-escalate the situation. But when they saw Ethan's bruises and the absolute state of the house, they arrested her. They charged her with domestic assault and child endangerment, because Ethan's technically still a dependent. I couldn't believe it. 1 minute, I was trying to protect my brother. The next, I was watching my mom being led away in handcuffs. Ethan was shaken, but he kept thanking me, saying I'd done the right thing. I thought so too, at first. But then my phone started blowing up with calls and texts from the rest of my family. My aunts, uncles, and even some of my cousins were furious. They said I'd overreacted, that I should have handled it within the family instead of involving the police. They said I'd humiliated my mom and destroyed our family. My aunt even called me a traitor, saying, "You don't send your own mother to jail. That's unforgivable." Even Ethan started to waver. Once the initial shock wore off, he started worrying about what would happen to her. He said, "Maybe we should have just waited for her to cool down." And now I'm stuck wondering if I've made a horrible mistake. I keep replaying that night in my head, wondering if there was another way I could have handled it. Maybe I could have convinced her to back off without calling the cops. Maybe I could have just taken Ethan to my place and let things settle. But at the same time, I keep thinking, what if I hadn't done anything? What if she'd hurt him worse? What if she'd hurt herself? I know I did what I thought was right in the moment. But now, with the entire family against me and my mom sitting in jail, I'm not so sure. Was I trying to protect Ethan, or was I just lashing out at her for all the years of abuse she put me through? Am I really the villain here, or did I finally break free from her control? The comments on my last post have been mixed, to say the least. Some of you think I did the right thing, that my mom needed to face consequences for her actions. Others think I went too far, that family matters shouldn't involve the police. One comment really stuck with me. You saved your brother, but you lost your family. Was it worth it? I don't know, I really don't. Another person said, your mom's actions were abusive and you were right to protect Ethan, but don't expect everyone to see it that way. People defend abusers because it's easier than facing the truth. That one hit me hard because it feels so true. My family isn't just mad at me, they're mad at the reality I forced them to confront. Update. After everything that happened, Ethan decided to move in with me. It's been a little over a month now, and things are okay. He's still processing everything, and honestly, so am I. We don't talk about Mom much, but when we do, it's tense. He's worried about what'll happen when she gets out of jail. Will she try to contact him? Will she forgive him? Or me? As for the rest of the family, I've barely heard from them. My dad, who divorced my mom years ago, reached out to say he supports me, but even he seems unsure about whether I made the right call. And Mom? I haven't spoken to her since the night she was arrested. Part of me wants to reach out, but another part thinks it's better if I don't. Maybe the distance is what we need, or maybe it's just my way of avoiding the guilt. So that's where things stand. My brother is safe, but my family is in pieces. I don't know if I'll ever have a relationship with my mom again, or if I even want one. But I keep asking myself, if I could go back, would I do it differently? And the truth is, I don't know. What do you think? Was I right to call the police, or did I go too far? Should I try to fix things with my mom, or is this just the price I have to pay for doing what I thought was right? It's been 6 months since that night, and a lot has changed. Ethan and I have settled into a routine. He's back in school, working part-time, and seems happier and more confident than I've ever seen him. But the shadow of what happened still looms over us. We don't talk about Mom often, but when we do, it's complicated. He feels guilty, even though I've told him 1,000 times it wasn't his fault. And me? I've been carrying the weight of wondering if I destroyed our family for nothing. But last week, I got a call I wasn't expecting. It was Mom. She's out of jail now, and she wanted to meet. At first, I wasn't sure if I should go. I didn't know what she'd say or if I was ready to hear it, but a part of me felt like I needed closure. So I said yes. We met at a park near her house. She looked different. Older, more tired, but also calmer, like the fire in her had finally burned out. For the first few minutes, we just sat there in awkward silence. Then she said, I've had a lot of time to think about what happened. She didn't apologize, not exactly. But she admitted that she'd let her anger get the better of her, that she'd taken things too far with Ethan. She said, I thought I was protecting him from making mistakes. But maybe I was just trying to control him because I was afraid of losing him. That was the closest she came to admitting what she'd done was wrong. But then she said something that caught me off guard. I'm still angry at you, Clara. You didn't just call the police, you broke something between us that I don't know how to fix. I didn't know how to respond. I told her I'd called the police because I was scared. Scared for Ethan. Scared for what might happen if I didn't do something. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully understand. And maybe she never will. Mom and I talked for about an hour. By the end of it, it was clear that we're not going to have the same kind of relationship we did before. She said she needs time, and honestly, so do I. But there was one moment that gave me a glimmer of hope. As we were saying goodbye, she looked at me and said, I don't hate you, Clara. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I don't hate you. That might not sound like much, but for my mom, it's huge. It's more than I expected, and maybe it's enough for now. I don't know what the future holds for my family. Some relationships are still broken. My aunts and uncles barely talk to me, and I doubt they ever will. Ethan and I are closer than ever, though, and that makes all the pain feel a little more worth it. As for my mom, I think this is the beginning of something new. Not a clean slate, but maybe a chance to rebuild slowly in a way that's healthier for both of us. I don't know if we'll ever fully heal, but I'm learning that sometimes just taking the first step is enough. Thank you to everyone who's followed this journey and shared your thoughts. Your comments helped me see things from perspectives I hadn't considered, and even when they were harsh, they pushed me to reflect on my actions. This might be the end of the story, but it's not the end of my life or my family's. We're still figuring things out, one day at a time.